Hey guys, sorry for the recent gap in my videos. I was even going to release the first new episode of Hour by Hour in ages, but I feel I have a decent excuse. Also, hey, I make $0 from YouTube for these videos because otherwise they take it down instantly, so if you want me to continue making these weekly, check out my Patreon if you want to. This is Suede's Pokemon Journey, Episode 3. Ash catches a Pokemon. Oh man, now this is more like it. I was actually a little creeped out by this episode. You know why? Well, not for the reason Misty was, that's for sure. Gosh, Misty, you sure are sensitive about arthropods the size of a human arm with the capacity to mummify you when the adhesive it regurgitates, aren't you? I guess I'm just weird that way, yeah. Now, please remove it from my person or you will shortly be compelled to do so with a bucket and a paper towel. No, actually, it's because it almost seems like the showrunners of the anime heard my criticism of the last episode 20-odd years in the past and took every one of my grievances to heart. That's certainly nice of them. Seriously, it's almost creepy how much this one corrects the mistakes of the last one. In fact, let's just go through the negative points of my last video and you can see how they improve on them in almost every way in this one. Problem number 1. That episode was too crowded and bulky. This episode held the record for the smallest amount of characters in a single episode for over 600 episodes. Problem number 2. I felt that story went all over the place and didn't have a coherent narrative. In this one, Ash catches a Pokemon and learns to fight with it. That is almost too simple of a plot synopsis, but they do so many good things with it that it proves my point really well. You don't need a million things happening at once when you can do excellent work with just one thing, and then there's no problem of potential confusion. Almost Gotham is considered one of the best episodes of Batman the Animated Series, and it's just a group of bad guys playing a card game. Problem number 3. In that episode, Team Rocket was too straight-faced and boring, and there was almost nothing to endear them to the audience. In this episode, jeepers creepers, I didn't think it would only take one bleeding episode for them to become the Team Rocket we know and love. They're so different here that it's like they just had brain slugs attached to their skulls in the last episode, and not just in voice and character, but even in animation too. Despite James still having his weird early voice, they're pretty much exactly the bumbling yet bizarrely heartwarming jerks they will be from now until the end of That Doesn't Count. So yes, that fault was fixed. There was one other thing in the last episode that drove me mad though. What was it? Oh yeah, problem number 4. In that episode, it sucked that there were some really pointless and annoying scenes that not only served no purpose, but contradicted the character of those portrayed in them.
What are you following us for?
Okay, so this episode doesn't bat 100. Not enough to stop this being a fantastic episode, but still.
I'm holding you responsible for my bike. When are you going to get over that dumb old bike?
Are you kidding? You stole it and destroyed it. Have you even seen how much bikes cost nowadays? It's probably more than you could even carry in your bag. Okay, fair, but then why are you hiding? You've already hunted me down for that thing. You've shown me you're willing to squeeze blood from a stone to get your bike back. You never hid before. Why start now? Yeah, it was just really weird that Misty suddenly decided to hide from Ash when she was not shying her intentions at all up to this point. It would have been perfectly fine for her to hang back due to her hatred of bugs, but hiding? Treating your very reason for hanging around this kid as a lame excuse? It's even exactly the same in the Japanese version. That and the whole refusal to reveal Staryu thing really stuck in my craw. She refrains from bringing out an incredibly powerful Pokemon to help again, and yes, maybe they wanted to save that reveal for later, but it means that when they are revealed, it makes Misty look like a real jerk in retrospect. Misty, there's tough love and then there's falling on your own sword. Okay, I should be clear. I just wanted to draw attention to those 2 scenes because they really are the only problem I have with this episode. Aside from that one misstep, there is seriously awesome work going on in this one. And to act pretty much how a 10-year-old brat would, even if he does have a heart of gold.
So, why don't you two make up? Just pat Caterpie on the head and say thanks for a really great job.
Dude, exposing people to their phobias is never cool, even if it is hilarious. I particularly liked how he got a lucky freebie with Caterpie, then immediately just felt like the world owed him a living and didn't even try with the next Pokemon he came across. It just rings so true with his character, wanting so much to be taken seriously that he sabotages his own efforts. And it has the additional bonus of teaching the kids watching never to take windfalls for granted and that hard work is still needed. There are actually a few moments like this where we learn more about what makes a character tick while also imparting good messages to kids simultaneously. Misty has a traditionally girly trait of finding bugs gross, and she cares deeply, but her character is far from the girly girl that's normally portrayed in kids anime. She's still a hot-headed tomboy, but her girly traits don't take that away from her. That's an important thing for kids of all genders to know, that who they are doesn't have to fit into these tidy little boxes society gives us. Another moment like this where I actually gasped when I realized what it was that was being said is here.
Well, if you just try hard enough, things will work out, won't they? No, Ash, I'm afraid things won't just work out if you try hard enough. The Pokemon trainer's judgment is more important than anything else, and unfortunately for you, the trainer has to have a brain.
Holy crap. That is basically Misty inflicting blunt force trauma on 80% of shonen anime, half the Disney animated universe, and even some of their own movies. Things got better with great movies like the Lego Movie and even some mediocre ones like Monsters University, helping our damaged psyches repair from some of the damage done by the harmful ideas the 90s gave us. But in the third freaking episode of Pokémon, in 1997, what the heck was this show? Astoundingly, even with that shocking lesson under its belt, it's not even my favorite scene from the episode. That would go to this one. Now, I do think the lesson taught here isn't as profound or important as the one previously mentioned, but it's elevated in my mind for being told without a single word. It's a quiet moment, it takes its time, it shows a new aspect of both characters while teaching kids watching about supporting peers who are discriminated against purely due to their looks. And it's all done through great voice work and perfectly realized animation. Although, I admit it does lend itself to some good old-fashioned subtitle humor. Oh yeah, and despite the filters, did you notice that the animation took a huge step up in this episode? At least when it comes to storyboarding and key poses? Don't get me wrong, the animation has still been pretty great so far, with the last episode in particular having the most gloriously over-the-top explosion to ever cause no deaths whatsoever.
I can see their parachutes. They're okay.
But everything just seems so much more lively in this episode. The faces are much more expressive and rubbery, the poses are way more interesting and dynamic, and there's just this additional vibrancy to the whole thing. I mean, compare this scene with Team Rocket.
I'm scared that mice will now I'm the top cat. We know, Meow, we know.
With this one.
Just the kind of Pokemon we need. Oh, give it up!
There's also tons of really nice humorous touches to the action, such as here when Caterpie is dejectedly walking away and Ash, instead of walking after him, just crawls along like a caterpillar. Those of you watching who know about the animation process know that most of this is the work of the storyboard artist, even more so than the director. They draw the basic poses and layouts for all the scenes before they're animated, so I think they deserve way more credit than most give them in any given project. Who is the storyboarder for this episode? Oh, it was actually the director, Yuji Asada, pulling double duty. Holy crap, this was his first episode of a ton he did for the show too. Let's keep an eye out for him from now on, shall we? So yeah, this episode was freaking top notch. It depicts an important event in Ash's life, expands his character and those around him, fixes many of the problems Team Rocket had, and even takes not one but 3 important life lessons that kids could take away. Life doesn't owe you anything, dreaming and believing in yourself does nothing if you don't put in the effort, but if you support those who have been dealt an unfair hand, the benefits can be surprising. Oh, and Stranger Danger, never forget Stranger Danger. Absolute gold of an episode and a solid master ball. Now that's how you do it. Trivia. This episode's trivia was extruded from the wellspring of Pokemental stimulation known as Bulbapedia, and the burbling brain brook known as Dogasu's backpack. Links in the description. If you log onto the site and say Suede 3 times at the screen, you will immediately wonder why you did it. But yes, onto the trivia. As well as being the smallest cast of characters for over 600 episodes, this one also holds the distinction for being the only episode in over 500 to have a Pokemon caught that evolved in the same episode. And it was the only one where a main character catches more than one Pokemon of a different species until Journeys. 1088 episodes later. Holy heck. This means, of course, that the title of this episode lied to us and Ash actually catches 2 Pokemon. Ugh, that takes it down to a Pokeball. Ash mentions here that Pokemon can only fight one-on-one, which is very, very not true in the modern anime. Odd how it took the entire world so long to think of using 2 Pokemon instead of 1. Caterpie also evolves by spraying silk all over himself, which is how real caterpillars do in real life, but strangely in later episodes, Caterpie are shown to evolve the same way as all the other Pokemon in a blast of radioactive energy. That can't be healthy. There is yet another edit here too, where Ash finds out what the 5 fingers said to the face. The really weird part is that they actually kept the sound effect in there.
I am the greatest. You're the worst.
Also, I know I'm not bringing up how the battle mechanics in the series differ from the games, unless it breaks its own rules, but I'm making one exception here just to say that yes, I thought String Shot looked like a fantastic move from this episode, which then got my Caterpie brutally murdered by Brock's Geodude in my first playthrough. Thanks, Ash. But finally, in the really weird part of the trivia, see this particular scene here?
And now, would you kindly keep your big mouth shut?
Notice how the voice actor for Ash emphasizes the word mouth to fit the extreme expression Ash does there? That's a rare case of the dub showing more effort than the original, as the Japanese version does no such thing. The cadence is the same all the way through. It boggles my mind. Who's that Patreon? It's Spike Prime! They ask, what Pokemon do you think that's objectively terrible, stats, strength, abilities, etc., that you still kinda love anyway? Charizard. Okay, fine, that's a bit of a cheat, and it has been viable in the past, so for a more obscure one I'd probably say Kabutops. That thing had cooler blades than Scyther. I wanted it ever since I first learned about Pokemon. Then you get it, and it gets knocked over by a stiff blade of grass, and then you box it. I still love it though, and I wish it got that Mega Evolution love that Aerodactyl got. Also, it really should have been Water Bug. I know it's meant to be a fossil, but like, not literally. It came from a rock. It isn't actually a rock. Is it? Are all fossil Pokemon just weird living statues? You can never tell. Also, I know that this is pretty basic, but I adore Tinkaton, but I hear they're also garbage, which is a shame. Not gonna stop me putting them in my party, though. And so, Suede journeys further into the twisting forest of the first season, refreshed by an episode of exceptional value. But what lies further through the trees? He can't even begin to guess, for who can truly predict that unique culture from the Japanese Isles? Extra special thanks to Brandon K, Calvin Atkinson, Charlie Thorne, John G. Robinson, Jonathan Johnson, Matt Stores, Marie Spear, Meep Cubed, Mystic Samurai 1983, The Dark Master, and Trey McGowan.